Hello, this is Todd Schultz, and this is my presentation on the legal aspects of teacher evaluation. I found the three articles very informative and very educational for what we're trying to do here in a principal leadership course, and I really took from the main largest article that the teacher evaluations are designed at the state level and operated at the district level. I thought this is a great way to do that because when the federal government has put their mandates out, it's kind of a blanket um, statement for all students in all states to follow and all teachers in all districts to follow. And I really just don't subscribe to the fact that they can mandate and know what's best for students in all the different states and cities. But their evaluation systems now we get to choose at the state level, that they're based on classroom observations, rubrics, lesson plans, student work, teachers' notes and checklists, standardized test results, and parent-student input. The big question as to why we are required to have the state involved in our teacher evaluation system is really boils down to money. The state funding comes from taxpayer dollars, and they want to make sure that the taxpayer dollars are being spent properly and well utilized within the school on teachers who are doing the job that they're hired to do. And I also think that equally and probably more important in most people's eyes is the outcome of the student achievement. But there is some an incentive for school districts to get grants, and so that is one way that they want to really do well on standardized testing and teacher evaluation so they can get grants and get money in for various projects in the school. Another is to improve teacher instruction, which directly affects and improves the student learning and student outcomes. They also want to expose district-wide pitfalls. These are things that might not be going along with the district plan or the building improvement plans. They want to expose those types of things so that they can develop ways to fix them. Also, these are now being tied in some states to compensation, promotion, and or dismissal of a staff member. For the new evaluation systems, which are kind of moving away from the old school model, the frequency of the observations is increasing. I know in my district we have walkthroughs, which are very informal, pretty frequently, and then we have large formal observations once a year, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. The complexity of the rubrics and outcomes are becoming more intense. There have more boxes to check, more wording to consider, those types of things. Objective measures, the student achievement data, which is objective based on how the students do, that is also being included in the evaluation systems. And that outcome is being tied to pay and tenure of teachers. The teachers' unions like some provisions of this, but they also dislike more provisions of it. They do recognize the need for a new evaluation system, but they don't want it tied to pay and tenure, and they don't want to include student test scores in that evaluation. Teachers are being judged on subjects that they don't even teach in some buildings in some states, which we can all agree that that's not fair. But I really don't know how you don't evaluate an employee's performance if you don't tie it to the outcome of what they are employed to do. The unions don't want the test scores or the pay and tenure tied to the evaluations, but I really am at a loss as to why they wouldn't want that tied to those things. Are the evaluation systems working? The high quality feedback is boosting student performance, or at least it should. Teacher improvement and instruction should improve. Data-driven instruction should be implemented after an evaluation has been given. And when it's aligned with the building improvement school-wide plan, they do work. The article that had the breakdown of all the teacher lawsuits I thought was pretty interesting. All the discussions going on with whether or not these evaluations are fair or should be tied to pay. is being brought up in court, and there was a great article of some overview across the country of various places that were having these issues. The Louisiana Teacher Federation sued the state of Louisiana, saying that it could not tie pay and tenure track to teacher evaluations. The second one is the teachers were hired prior to a law that was instituted in Clark County. And so those teachers were grandfathered, and they had contractual rights under due process, which were done away with in that specific instance. But because those teachers were hired prior to that law being implemented, then they were grandfathered into the old one, which allowed them to have the due process rights. Stapleton versus Scandera, legislation for new evaluations on teachers failed. Scandera sued for issuing them anyway. So this was a state Department of Education, I believe, head of that department, and she pushed for some of the things that failed in the legislation. She just went ahead and did them anyway and issued these directives and expected her local boards of education and districts to follow them. So they were sued for that. The federal government above the state is getting involved. The Secretary of Education cannot now determine the state's evaluation systems. Those are now directly tied to the state and what needs to be done in that state, which I fully agree with and think that's the best way to do it. States should submit a plan for evaluation systems. That way there is some accountability and some oversight into what the states are doing, because that is imperative in the sense that they need to know that the things they're doing are down on paper, that they have a particular way that they're evaluating, and a particular way they're moving forward with those evaluations. The ESSA Act there, savings clause, protects against ESSA interference. So there is a clause in that saying that that those teachers and those districts can't be interfered by the federal government when they're making those plans. The one case that I found online that I thought was really interesting, because it had such a kind of a wild accusation that the Houston Independent School District was using this algorithm that they had a security firm develop to deny teachers the right to challenge their terminations. And the reason they were challenging these terminations, because the teachers thought that the algorithms were inaccurate, and that the fact was that they used students' standardized test scores and other factors to determine which teachers were evaluated, fired, and given bonuses for several years. The teachers really just said that the district couldn't provide enough information about the results and how the data was collected and how they were tied to terminations. So that left the teachers unable to defend against possible errors in the calculation. Basically, we don't know how you're getting these answers, and we have no way to improve on the things that you can't tell us we're doing wrong. So the findings of the case didn't force Houston School District to quit using the system, but it did make them, the findings made them pretty nervous that this was getting such heat. So they really opted to terminate that algorithm's use. The case did just require that HSID be able to provide verifiable data to a teacher in terminations proceedings. So the reason that Houston School District terminated its use, because they did realize that they couldn't provide this verifiable data because the algorithm didn't provide that. That was a pretty interesting case because of its implications in a real school district, which is, I think, one of the top 5 or 6 largest in the country. So that set the ground for others not being able to do that, which is a good thing. My district, USD 394, that I am currently employed, we use the KEEP evaluation system, or KEEP 2, and I've linked the website here, which I will just go to shortly and show, maybe. Just go to the website and show you some of the things that they do. This is the Department of Education website, and it does have breakdown for all of the KEEP 2 evaluation system, from frequently asked questions. There's training on how to do it. It is a 2-cycle evaluation, so there is procedures throughout the year and throughout your first 2 years in a district. It also gives the breakdowns of everything that goes on in the timeline and what's required of you. That's kind of a neat feature there. I like the timeline. I have used it to kind of determine when I'm going to be evaluated within my district, and when I should also have things uploaded and submitted on the Keep2 website in my Keep2 portfolio. So there's a lot of ways you can check the user's guide and the different things that you might have questions on regarding the evaluation, because I've found that my administration, as much as they try, they have a hard time keeping up with all of the details of this evaluation, let alone coming around and doing the evaluations and having the meetings before and after and setting goals and doing all of the things that are necessary to do for this evaluation to be effective. The questions I have and can't get answered by them, I simply come here and do some clicking around, and it really works. So back to the system that I use at my school, or am using there. We're evaluated with short walkthroughs 4 times a year or so. In addition, we're given a full evaluation through the KEEP process twice in our first year of teaching, and then every other year after that. My first year of teaching 3 years ago, it was quite a lot of time consumed keeping up with this and doing everything I had to do, but it was well worth it in the end, because it allowed me to see some of the things I was doing incorrectly or not fully proficient, and then I could fix those things. The informal walkthroughs are done really quickly on an iPad, which I like. They just come in unannounced. They bop in for 3 or 4 minutes. They watch what you're teaching, then they leave, and then they email that right to you. The con of it is, though, that sometimes the walkthroughs, they come in when you're doing something in transition or between lessons, or actually something's just not going on in your classroom. There may not be any teaching going on at the time they come through. So I don't know how they actually get a decent evaluation on that smaller informal walkthroughs sometimes, but oftentimes we are doing things that they can comment on. Our evaluation process is rigorous. There's a complex rubric for the state of Kansas, multiple benchmarks, student growth data is represented. We have to put artifacts and evidence up on the website and download those. Basically, they are lesson plans, they are test scores, they are worksheets, anything that we can prove of the lessons that we're working on that are tied to our goals. They're very transparent. It's pretty obvious when you see the rubric what it is they're looking for, how to achieve it, and the different levels that you can achieve. There's only 4 levels. It's kind of an A, B, C, D type thing. And if you're in the A level, you know you're doing everything to the best of your ability, and it's very obvious to the supervisor that sees that. If you're down in the D, it's saying that you are in the lowest category, that there's not evidence of consistency and frequency of quality teaching. It's equitable. All teachers have the same evaluation process, and they all have the same access to professional development and the resources of having an assigned mentor that first year, teachers and leaders in our school, and administrators in our school. I agree with the 3 descriptions about the process. It's clearly defined, and the rubrics are broken down, and there's really quality categories and subcategories. And we're always given the chance to respond, whether it's verbally to our supervisor or by comments that we leave in the actual Keep2 documentation. We have to set goals each year, and that is something that we revisit every year, whether it's the same goal or different goal. They do challenge us to use different goals each year. And the teachers in my district, we're always offered a lot of avenues for growth and professional development. In fact, next month, we're allowed to take a professional development day off campus in the setting of our choice, and they've left that pretty open to us. Mentor is assigned to us, as I mentioned earlier, and that was very helpful for my first year of teaching, and the administrators are always available to help us. And if a teacher is let go in our district and they feel it was unjust, they can make a case with the local NEA. They can present to the school board for action regarding their termination. Basically, they file the complaint, and then the case is opened by the school board and administration to find out if any wrongdoing was there. Typically, when the district has to let a teacher go, it's because in the first couple years of teaching that the teacher has proven that they are not able to meet the benchmarks with help from the supervisors, and the district then has ample evidence showing the teacher's ineffective and they could not meet the criteria for this plan of improvement. So that is Todd Schultz. Thank you.